Good Friday afternoon, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille Show. Thank you kindly for joining us. We are live in Charlottesville, across Albemarle County, Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world, on the I Love CVille Network. We thank our friends at Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine for being a part of this program. Who's got your back? Dr. Wagner's got your back at Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine. A lot we're going to cover on today's show, including the vaccine passport news from the University of Virginia. If you're a student, if you're a professor, if you work at UVA, you're going to have vaccine and proof of vaccination before they'll let you back on grounds again this fall. We'll talk about that today on the program. We'll also talk inflation and how it could be impacting restaurants in our community in a matter of 30 seconds with Jabari Wadlington. He's a good friend of this show, a seasoned and talented executive chef who has much perspective to offer. The Sheets on the UVA corner is closing. I'll analyze that business going out of business today on the show. We'll take a look at the Fry Springs quarter as well. I'm hearing Atlas Coffee has either sold or rebranded. That news for you. Of course, yesterday we let you know that Dirty Nelly's has a new owner, Jordan Brunk, a good friend of the program, who I've probably known since the 3rd or 4th grade. So much to cover on the show. Give it a like and a share. Tag a friend if they need to hear this news. And share your perspective in the comments section. Judah Wickhauer is our director. Judah, I think without further ado, we need to go from one JW, you Judah Wickhauer, to another JW and Jabari Wadlington, the chef of talented and epic proportions. Jabari, you are live now. We're grateful for you joining us. My friend, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Jerry. I'm doing well.
It's always our pleasure. You are immensely talented. You are extremely experienced. I've had food from you at Restoration, at Farm Bell Kitchen. I need to get to the DoubleTree to try what's on your menu now.
Yeah. Come to Route 29 is our restaurant.
There you go. Okay. So you got a lot of experience in this game. I want to talk about a Facebook post you did the other day that frankly has gone viral locally.
Yeah.
I'll leave the show. You kind of set the stage of what you outlined in that Facebook post.
Well, essentially, and just kind of talking to a lot of friends in the industry, I know some chefs that's kind of retired from the industry and kind of left because of COVID, and I know some people that are still struggling and trying to get their feet back on basically going again. And the constant thing that kind of, there was a post somebody posted about McDonald's starting people at $18 an hour. And you keep seeing this, the Wawa that just opened up here in town, $15 an hour starting, plus $75 bonus for vaccination, plus a signing bonus. And a lot of restaurants as a whole, to be able to compete with a labor market like that, where you have line cooks or you have a dishwasher, say we're already short staffed as it is, they see somebody offering $2 more or $1 more, depending on what you're doing. And you got a place like McDonald's where you barely got to do anything. And it's a fast food. No, not taking anything away from the people who work in the fast food industry. But for us to be able to compete with a multi-million-dollar corporation like McDonald's with mom and pops and like that, it's difficult. You know, you're talking about some might be a 26% increase, 5% increase in labor. And I'm all for paying people the good, honest wage. And there's a whole nother subject going to the housing market. And it goes into gas prices, goes to products being readily available. And I think we just walked into basically a perfect storm of bullcrap that's happening all over this country that's causing the issues that we're having. And basically what I was saying in the post was, you know, products have gone up. Chicken prices, seafood prices, lobster, crab meat. If you want cheap product, right now you can get cheap crab meat and cheap shrimp from overseas. You want to get it from Vietnam, Indonesia, the flavor profile is not the same. Personally, I'm a Outer Banks Gulf shrimp fan myself. The shrimp is nice and sweet. It's local. It's good, but it's double the price. So it's the same thing with chicken, which it kind of didn't rubbed people a little differently because they didn't realize that chicken could get to $3.41 a pound. I'm used to seeing it around 114, 161. And to have such a jump on an item that is so readily used for a menu to kind of be able to balance your menu cost out. And what I say by menu cost for people who don't know what I'm talking about, so we have plate cost and menu cost. So what I put on the post was plate cost. So whenever you build a menu item, whether it's a chicken sandwich, a burger, lobster thermidor, whatever, anything, whatever you're doing, we build a plate cost. Depending on your P&L and your budget, you might run a 27, 30, whatever, and that's your margin where you want to start out with. Now you have a high cost, like now I have to charge, say I had to charge chicken sandwich for $20. Now I have to put that on my menu, and I have to try and find a way to make the chicken sandwich go lower when usually the chicken sandwich is already low and helps my higher cost items like shrimp, crab, steak, grass-fed meat, local products, which cost a lot more. So when you have a lower product like chicken going up, it causes your menu cost to go up. And then when you have prices going up and then you have labor going up at the same time, you run into issues as far as getting creative, what you're going to put on your menu. Personally, I took the fried chicken sandwich off of our menus, grilled chicken sandwiches, all that off our menus, and I put on a spicy pork sandwich. I can get pork loin for a lot cheaper, and I can still get creative. So it's not so much that we're not able to sell chicken sandwiches and different items at a lower cost, but if everything is high and we don't have items that are lower where everybody's also eating right more, a lot of people aren't eating as much pork as they used to. You know, a lot of people are going with the vegan options. Beyond Meat, Impossible Meat, all those no bull, those aren't cheap. Those aren't cheap either. So when you have items that aren't mixing well and labor's high, product's high, it makes it very difficult. And the joke was essentially, do you think people are going to pay $20 for a chicken sandwich? And if a chicken sandwich is $20, how much would you pay for a crab sandwich, which is already high in itself? So that's essentially what we're kind of looking at, and that's kind of the challenges that we have right now. And on top of the labor shortages and trying to get people just to work has been a challenge all in itself.
You got a ton of comments coming in already. The post went viral. I saw it and I was like, this is need to know information. This is the question that I'd asked of you. For us that are not in the restaurant business, educate
Right.
us. What is the economics of pricing a chicken sandwich? How does that work?
So from the page that I posted, I basically did a breakdown where essentially when I first got back to work about a couple weeks ago, I got a little sticker shock from chicken per pound. It was at $3.41 a pound. Now, is that going to stay that way? No, it'll go back down. It'll level itself out. But when you're talking about, that's a pound. So you're basically paying $3.41 a pound. Now, if I break that down into ounces and I want to go ahead and do 6 ounces of chicken breast, I have to break that down to around $1.61. This is just off the top of my head. And then I'm also going to have to cost in the toppings, the mayonnaise, whatever you're putting on there, the aioli or whatever, your bread, all that stuff. And we tend to use brioche bread and Albemarle Baking Company. And a lot of people will pay the price for Albemarle Baking Company. Greg is an
It's great
amazing
bread.
owner. His bread's best bread in
Yeah.
town. I use them no matter where I'm at. So that all comes down. And then I also factor in labor. Now, before I used to use a different method, but when you're looking at $18 or $15, I break that down to how long does it take for one employee to create a single meal? Between 10 to 15 minutes for lunch, 12 to 20 minutes for dinner. So I put in around 10 being around the median average, depending on how busy the restaurant is. But per ticket, if there's 8 items, 6 items, 5 items, whatever, we try to get a food out within 10 minutes. So I basically took the $18 an hour rate and I broke that down to 10 minutes, adding that $10, 10 minutes of labor per item for plate cost. That's where I factor in that money, because a lot of people's like, well, why don't you have 50% profit? Well, we also have to pay for utilities, plates, labor,
Rent.
rent, which is stupid high around here. There's so many things that factor in. If you were to take a plate and make a circle, like a nice little pie chart, per se, there's such a little cents that go into spread a huge P&L or budget line where all those go into it. So we don't have the liberty to be able to charge 50% profit on each plate. So that's why we usually stick around a 27 to 30%. Now, there'll be some items like pork is at a nice price right now. You could get that down to 15, 10%, but that pork's going to have to lift up another item that's high in percentage. So if I have an item that's sitting at 41%, which might be red meat or something, that pork sandwich, which is sitting around 10 or 15%, is going to help bring that percentage down on the steak. So, but you also have to look at what's selling. If I'm selling more of the steak and no one's buying the pork, I'm not winning. So that's why we try to get creative with what we are putting on our menus to basically sell the menu as a whole versus somebody coming in and just ordering one item. So that's usually where we get those pricing and plate costs.
Jabari dropping knowledge, guys, here on the I Love CVille Show. Executive Chef Jabari Wadlington. Let me throw a couple of questions to you, and we're all learning from you here.
Yeah.
A one-unit, locally owned, call it a mom-and-pop restaurant, a restaurant that's owned here in Charlottesville by our peers, right? What is a good profit margin for a restaurant like that?
It all depends on what you're trying to do.
Okay.
If you say you're like the Greg Hartmans and you're doing barbecue exchange where you're barbecuing meats and you're putting everything on little platters or paper, or what's the other burger joint on the corner where they use disposable? Yep. A lot of those things
Jack Brown's.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So that always factors into what restaurant you're talking about and where their budget line is. Is their lease high? Is their lease low? Do they own the property? Do they not own the property? Are they part of the labor structure? How many salaried managers do they have? So it's a tough question to be able to ask pertaining to multiple units, but you always try to, for myself, I always tell myself the back of the house will bring in 65% of the pie as far as expenses go and what you make out of the restaurant. So a chef in any restaurant has a lot on its shoulders because you're managing a lot of cost to be able to keep everything afloat. And so that's usually where I would say as far as profit goes, but every restaurant's going to be different. Some restaurants are bringing in 5% or 10% or depending on what they're working with. That's why pizza restaurants, Italian bakeries, things like that, they'll do well because there's not a lot of extra product, you know.
Throw this question to you. How do you see customers responding? And you made this really good point. Someone like a McDonald's has purchasing power, economies of scale. Darn, they got a drive-through where folks don't even have to go in. So they got a different different revenue stream than a sit-down does with a drive-through. How's the marketplace going to respond when like a McDonald's, a KFC, a Cane's can do a chicken sandwich between, say, $1.50 to $3.50, but a locally owned, because it doesn't have the purchasing power and it does not have the economies of scale, is getting closer and closer to 20? Does that mean the chicken sandwich just gets pulled off altogether, or they still just offer the chicken sandwich as an option and say, hey, this is what locally owned is, and this is what you got to pay to keep us in business?
Well, that's the question at hand, and that's why I kind of put that post out. we don't necessarily have to sell a sandwich at $20, but we have to be able to find a way to make money off of each line item. Um, like the big companies, I had a fried chicken sandwich at Buffalo Wild Wings, and the thing was huge. It was huge, but then you look at what does Buffalo Wild Wings sell? They sell chicken. So when they open up a restaurant, they talk to their purchasing agent, wherever they're getting their food from. They say we're going to buy X amount of cases of chicken this year. This is what we're going to do, and then they go ahead and they bid on a price. Now, a lot of small places, even as far as the DoubleTree goes, because we're still franchise owned. There's only two that are owned by this owner. So when we also don't have that huge buying power as far as saying, oh, we're going to go through 1,000 cases of chicken, go ahead and bring my price down. So a lot of times with these small places, we always, whenever you're creating a menu, you're also looking at, do I have a menu that I'm able to have a little bit of buying power with a Cisco or US Foods and tell them, hey, I'm going to buy 20 cases every quarter of this product. You might be able to get your price to go down, but it's still going to have a margin in price. So sometimes it's still going to fluctuate with the market at sometimes. So it's going to be harder for mom and pops. I took chicken off, but it's going to come back at some point once I can get that price down because that's what they want. If you have every fast food restaurant, corporate restaurant, have a fried chicken sandwich on their menu, at some point we're going to have to keep up with the Joneses because people are going to be looking for it. So it's one of those tough decisions that we make as chefs and business owners. Do we want to stay with the herd or do we want to create our own? But right now, the chicken craze through COVID and the last 2 years has been crazy, and it sells. If it sells, you're going to put it on because you want to make those sales. So
I'll throw this to you. A lot of folks were asking this question with your post. Why can the line cook only do one chicken sandwich in 10 minutes? And they misunderstood what you were saying. Let's explain this to them.
So essentially what I'm saying is on a given day, you could probably even see, I'm trying to think of what restaurants now have open kitchens. Let's say Rapture, Trevini had an open kitchen. If you ever look in a kitchen, there's called an expo line. That's where usually we get all our tickets. They come out of a printer, and for each ticket, we have to knock that food out within a certain amount of time. Because if we have 20 tickets and we're taking our time with one ticket, that 20th ticket at the end of the line, that's still waiting. So we have to be on it, like 8, 10 minutes, 8 minutes, 5 minutes. And there's some bomb chefs and cooks in this town that can literally take that 10 minutes and make it look like nothing and bring it down to 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes a ticket. But that's usually a median number I use to account for what we're doing. So a lot of times, if I come up with a dish that takes 3 saute pans, 2 different stations to create one dish, that means my ticket times are going to be longer because I'm using multiple stations. So we factor in how long it will take so we know what's it going to cost. Because if it's costing more for one plate to knock out more food, then we know we need to adjust it or we can't afford that particular item at that time. So that's usually kind of where we use it. It's not so much somebody sitting there and they're making one item for 10 minutes. It's usually a ticket, whether it's a party of 8, party of 5, it's 10 minutes or less to get that food out.
That's a good explanation. Executive Chef Jabari Wadlington, our guest here. A lot of questions coming in for you. I will get to some of these questions here. This is an interesting one from Richmond. Line cook in Richmond. Jerry, ask your guest how he's figuring out staffing shortages at the same time of people asking for more money per shift and what that's going to do to his menu pricing moving forward.
That's a difficult question because we're right in the middle of that challenge right now. With COVID and unemployment, I read something yesterday, 21 states have taken away the $300 off the unemployment. Some have even got rid of unemployment. Um, and I think at the end of this month, you will have to. It's mandatory to apply for a job.
Yeah, you have
And
to
if
do
that
two
person
per
does not,
week now.
correct. So I think that's going to help us. Um, but I also am worried of people filling out applications and not showing up to interviews, just so they can get their thing. Or if you try and say they never showed up, they could be like, "Oh, I did show up," and then it just turns into a whole thing. Um, it's a difficult time right now when it comes to the labor. The pricing, I've personally kept everything down because I don't know who's going to be in my kitchen. You know, I can't go ahead and do a multi-layered plate or dish when I don't have the proper staff. Some days I'm by myself, some days I have another person, some days I'm taking a day off and I have one of my guys that are here working. So I want to be able to make the items easy to execute and still be good and have value to the dollar at the same time. So it's basically at this time we're adjusting our menus, we're adjusting our food. Like I like to say, we're bobbing and weaving with the punches, and kind of just trying to get through that way. Right now, we're trying to factor in how much can we actually afford with this rate. I think, and then you also have the problem with the people that you've had working with you through COVID. You go ahead and start offering $2, $3 more for a starting position, and those people that's been with you through all the hard times, blood, sweat, and tears, and someone starting is making more, then you have to factor in, you have to pay out your people that's been here first. You have to give them a jump above the starting because you can't start somebody at, say, 16 and say one of your all stars was making 13 and then you brought somebody in at 16. Now they're going to be like,
That
whoa,
pissed
what's
me
up with
off. That would
that?
piss
So
me
now you
off.
just,
Yeah.
exactly. So now you have to jump your people that's been there above what you would be starting at and then bring your new employees below that. But you also have to compete with what other people are offering. I think for ourselves, we have a little bit of a upper hand because we're able to. If you work for Route 29 restaurant, you also work for Hilton, which means you get a Hilton discount, which means you get friends and family and employee rates for all Hilton properties all over the world. So that makes a big difference in what we're able to charge because a room that costs $300, you could get it for $35, $40
Damn.
if you're an employee at Hilton.
Wow.
So that's one of our incentives on how we're able to get people in. But a lot of times when you look at the mom and pops, you know, they don't have that extra incentives. So it makes it difficult. And especially when you're dealing with scratch kitchens where you need somebody who has either the patience, willing to learn, or have that foundation of techniques where it can reduce some of your stress levels. Because there's a lot of business owners and chefs that are stressed out and we're happy at the same time. Everything, the restrictions are coming down, everything's opening back up, but we still have that labor issue, which is always is going to be a problem because people are complaining. People are going to complain, and I think the post that I posted was basically just to let people
To chill
know
out.
have a little have a little patience for the people in the hospitality industry, for the B&Bs, for the boutique inns, for the hotels, for the restaurants. Have a little patience with us because if you were on the other side and someone kept complaining, you would have an issue. So we try to keep that smiling face, make sure we're able to, because if you let us know there's an issue, I guarantee you we can make it better than you leaving upset and we have no way to rectify the situation and make your experience better. So we all, I think I would definitely agree with a lot of chefs would probably agree with me that just have patience with us while we get through these tough times and don't forget to support your local restaurants.
You got, I see 11 restaurant owners in this community watching this interview now. You got a hell of a lot of back of the house, in front of the house watching as well. Here's an interesting message. This was sent to me via DM. Jerry, please don't use my name, and please don't say the restaurants that I own, but please ask Jabari this question. If we have to pay our folks $15 to $20 per hour, have him explain what this is going to do to the 1 and 2 unit owners in this community, because not enough people know this. You know I'm all for a living wage and for people to live in this community, but is it going to come at the cost of jobs? Will we lose these jobs if we uptick hourly rates to $15 to $20 an hour, basically giving these folks zero money at that point?
His statement is 100% right, because in my opinion, and I've talked to other people in Northern Virginia, and they've had the same issues in other states, we're worried about what's going to happen next year. We could go ahead and get that rate, pay someone 15, 19, 20, whatever, but what's going to happen next year? What's going to happen next year with the business? And that's the whole reason why I keep saying, if we have to pay these people, and I'm not saying not paying them is not what we want, but we're not going to be able to afford it in the later run. And if the consumer is not willing to pay basically amusement park prices, which is astronomical, where you're getting a lesser product and you're paying more, or you're getting the same product that we've always been putting out and we're just raising the price, how much there's a lot of foodies and a lot of regulars in this business that support a lot of the local restaurants in this town. And speaking personally, Charlottesville has probably the hugest following as far as local support. But at the same time, that local support, how long will it be where they can actually afford to go out every single day? Because I've had regulars come into the restaurant every single day before COVID. Now, how many times are they going to be able to come in every week now? Are they going to be able to only come in once a week, every other 2 weeks? Is your restaurant going to turn into an occasional restaurant where people just go out on the holidays and special events? So with that said, I honestly don't think, and this is just the pessimistic side, it's going to be extremely difficult in the coming years if that price maintains and we're not able to raise our prices without the consumer or the guest being upset about the raising prices. Because you can't raise prices and raise a living wage and still be able to afford high rent, everything else that goes with it, utility rates, all that stuff. And the gentleman that's wrote you the DM is definitely right, because it is a concern. It is a concern. You get the employee in, now you got the employee in there. You better not go into overtime, because that's just going to kill you. You know, you can't have the same amount of people. If you bring someone in at $20, you can't bring in 2 people at $20. That's $40 an hour. If you take $40 an hour and put that into an 80-hour work week, 80-hour 2-week work period, and times that by 26 paychecks in a month or something like that in a year, I mean, that's a lot of money. So it's very difficult for people to be able to pay that rate. That rate is extremely high for some restaurants, and even big restaurants, corporate. You know, that you've already seen the downsize in a lot of corporate restaurants have cut a lot of their slow-moving restaurants to put more energy into their restaurants that were doing well. So when you deal with somebody with a multi-unit, where they have 1 or 2 or 3 restaurants, it's going to be extremely hard. I think, personally, it's just going to be a challenge. And that's where the chefs come into play, and we have to get creative with the food. I think we need to have a lot more community events that support the restaurants. Whether it's, you have the Lollapaloozas and everything that happens out in Nelson County, but we need to bring that into Albemarle County. Bring in some of the local restaurants. I know we had the Fridays after 5, but we need to have some kind of revenue stream that is targeted strictly to the hospitality industry, and especially in this town, because we need to grab every single cent. And it's not like Charlottesville was a non-competitive market. It's a very competitive market. And you just have to be on your toes. And right now we're stressed out and we're scared. I'm personally scared. I'm not going to speak for everybody, but we don't know what the future is going to hold, and it's difficult to be able to try and put two and two together to try and figure out what's the next move. But as far as that goes, I think next year, if we maintain this, prices are going to have to go up. And if you're also having issues from a production and agricultural side, as far as farmers not being able to cultivate their whole fields because they're low on migrant workers because the borders are closed and they can't get the migrant workers to work on the farms. So now farmers are losing money. They can't even produce the products that they used to. But then we support our local farms, which is good. But the prices of local is not cheap either, because they have a living wage. It's a smaller scale versus a larger scale. So it's all going to come down at some point, and I think trying to see if it's just going to plateau. And if we know where it's plateauing, we can always adapt. This industry has been adapting for decades. So we're just trying to see what's the next option and what's the next step that we need to take in order to make everything work.
So what's the mom and pop, what's the one unit locally owned restaurant do? Do they say no to table service and have customers pick up at the window, which would obviously potentially eliminate some labor positions from the front of the house? I mean, that's an option. The Jack Brown's model, where they have no lettuce, no tomato, and paper plates, and they throw everything away to keep food costs more in check. I was looking at Pro Renata. Pro Renata is now selling almost like tin cups for pint glasses because so many of their guests are walking away on the weekend with the branded Pro Renata glass that they were losing 100 glasses a weekend, and they said that was just getting too expensive to replace them. So now they're trying to sell glasses to customers and incentivize them by giving them a quarter discount on every draft beer they purchase after they buy the glass. Now, they would obviously have to buy the glass and then bring it with them every visit to the brewery to get that advantage. What does the mom and pop have to do to survive here?
Get creative. I have expensive taste myself, so I've always had to kind of put that in check. There's little things like you're not going to need 6 different glasses for your beers. You're not going to be able to do all the little stuff to have your different wine glasses, your white wine glass, your port glass, your red wine glass, so things like that when you go into a upper scale model. I think keeping it small, keeping it tight, but bringing in disposable, but also being green at the same time and sustainable is going to be another thing you have to look at. And I think it's all about getting creative. You have to get creative. It's going to be a challenge, and just try and figure out the best way to combat these scenarios that we're about to hit in the next coming months.
Final question for you. This is from Grayson, and Grayson says this, and you crushed this, dude. Thank you for your time. Grayson's watching from Belmont. He says, "Chef, we're oversaturated with restaurants. Perhaps this is what the restaurant economy, I think he means ecosystem, perhaps this is what's going to be good for restaurants, and that there could be less that are able to survive from this, which means the ones that do survive get more market share." What's your take on that?
Well, if you look back in 2020 during COVID, we lost, what was it, 30?
It was a lot.
So
Yeah.
restaurants, and restaurants were closing before COVID. But now, if you looked at some of those open lots, they're getting filled already. You have corporate places coming in. You have some people that are able to take over those spots. So as far as places closing, I don't think that's going to happen. We're in a market where people have always looked at Charlottesville. We're right outside of Richmond. We're 2 hours outside of Northern Virginia area. We're in a pretty decent location when it comes to that. And I think we're always going to have that issue of the oversaturation. It's just, can the population increase to sustain the amount of restaurants we have? And in order to bring in more population, you need to reduce your housing costs.
Right.
But if you have housing costs in Charlottesville that's almost the same as Northern Virginia, you have the Crozet prices are astronomical. You have, but they're building everywhere. There's communities being built everywhere. And if you notice North Albemarle, you have another community that's right over here. You have another one off of, which is behind Walmart along that back road. There's more communities on that side. So I don't think as far as closing of restaurants is going to be an issue because we just need the population to increase because there's always going to be somebody that's going to want a restaurant. I want a restaurant. I'll have one day. Got a food truck in mind coming soon. So we're always going to be fishing for new business, but we need the population to increase in order to make everything more sustainable for everybody here.
You got me thinking. Last question, I promise this time here. The food truck,
Yeah.
the food truck model, does that look more appealing than ever?
Oh, yes. If someone told me I'll give you a restaurant or a food truck and I'll pay for it, I'm going to pick the food truck. Hands down, there's no issues. And I wouldn't get a truck, it would get a trailer. If you get a food truck, you have to worry about engine breaking down, the chassis, suspension, all the stuff that happens with a car. Whether you get a trailer, you pull it with the car. If your car breaks down, go rent a U-Haul. So little things like that. I would definitely go towards a food truck model because you can control it, lower menu costs. You can change the menu when you want to. When you run out of product, you take it off the menu. You open up next day, you get your product, you do it all over again. Because it's almost like if you ever get barbecue in Texas, a lot of the small mom and pops, they cook 20 briskets a day. You stand in line. If you're the last person, sorry, you got to try again, get the brisket next time. But no one's upset. It's the demand for it. If people know it's there, people will come. And if they realize, oh, they keep selling out that product, no matter how many people come, it's got to be a good product. And you got to just get into it. And I think the food truck model is totally attractive more than the restaurant, especially right now.
Especially with COVID.
Especially right
Yeah. Dude, you killed it. You made everybody smarter today. I'm going to reach out to you again. I love when you come on the show.
Yeah.
I love how you make this approachable because a lot of folks just don't understand the game. A lot of folks think that the restaurant owners are swimming in money like Scrooge McDuck, but it's the opposite of that. They're trying to do well by their team members, and it's their passion, and they're trying to do well by the community and keep their lights on. I think you really explained that well today. All the best to you and your family, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Just everybody be patient and enjoy the food that we put out.
Amen. You have a good one, Jabari.
You do the same. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, guys. He's A+ people. He is A+++ people. And dude, his food is banging. His food is so banging. For the comments and questions that we didn't have an opportunity to get to, we'll see if we can save or table them for next week. On Monday's show, we have Chef Mike Matarazzo, who is the executive chef at Farmington. And he's going to follow up on this topic, and we're going to take a look at it from a club standpoint, a locally owned standpoint, a regional brand standpoint, and also a big box brand restaurant standpoint. On Monday's show, we continue this discussion. This is what you got going on. You got a shortage in labor. At the same time, you have increased cost of goods. At the same time, you have inflation going on in the world. And those three things colliding at the same time means the math, the arithmetic, the economics of menu pricing is more difficult than ever. We'll take a look at this topic on Monday's program. I got some other topics I want to get to on the show today as well, and I want to thank Jabari Wadlington for joining us on the show. If you have a chance to see him, tell him he did a hell of a job on the show and try his food because it's banging. Now, let's change the topic briefly, and let's go to the University of Virginia requiring vaccinations for all students when they return to grounds. This broke yesterday afternoon. UVA students must upload proof of their vaccination status to a website portal no later than July 1. If UVA students have not uploaded proof of vaccination by July 1, they will not be permitted to return to grounds after July 1 if they are not vaccinated. UVA, and it's the city of UVA, it's not the city of Charlottesville. We might as well call this, instead of Central Virginia, Central University of Virginia. So when the most powerful brand and the most powerful player in the market, and everyone that's watching this program knows the University of Virginia is the most powerful brand and the most powerful player in the market. When the most powerful brand and the most powerful player says, students who keep us in business, you cannot come to our school unless you show us proof of vaccination, that's going to have a trickle over or a trickle down effect to other brands and businesses. Mark my words. And the other brands or businesses that this influence trickles over, they're going to say, hey, Jim Ryan, President Jim Ryan's demanding that 24,000 students, or whatever the hell the number is, with undergrads and graduates, he's demanding that these kids, these students, show proof of vaccination. So if UVA can do it, a public university, we can do it. And that's a hell of a lot of leverage for the locally owned business. So proof of vaccination for a university in Charlottesville, we'll see the impact this has for other businesses and brands in this community. I would expect it will have it will influence others. I'm curious of how some parents of students will respond to proof of vaccination to come to grounds. I don't think the students will have a problem. I think where the issue is going to lie is going to be with some very conservative mom and dads saying, hey, you can't ask that of our son or daughter. Time will tell, but the deadline is July 1. Now, folks, yesterday on this network, we broke some news about Sheetz on the UVA corner closing its doors. In fact, I'm going to call up what we posted all over social media that also went viral yesterday. I think as of now on the I Love CVille Network, Sheetz on the UVA corner closing, seen by roughly 50,000 people on all our social platforms combined. June 3rd, a Sheetz rep confirmed with me yesterday the last day the cafe on the UVA corner will be open. Sheetz has 6 cafes in its portfolio, and it defines a cafe by a location that has no gas pumps. One of those 6 cafes on the UVA corner. When the cafe opened on the corner, everyone in this town was like, what the hell is this? What is a gas station brand doing opening up on the University of Virginia corner? Remember when Urban Outfitters opened on the downtown mall? Everyone in this community is like, what the hell is going on here? A mega corporate, worldwide, global brand is on the 8 blocks that we call the heartbeat of Charlottesville. It was the same response we had when Five Guys came downtown. Same response we had when Sheetz came to the UVA corner. Right? So I'm going to throw this question to you. A, is the Sheetz UVA corner location cursed? The Sheetz UVA corner location has been a number of iterations. When I first arrived to Charlottesville, it was the greenskeeper. In fact, the second bar I ever had a beverage, an alcoholic beverage at, while a first year at UVA, yes, I had a fake ID. I talk about that all the time. I'm not ashamed of that. The first one was Coupe de Ville's. Coupe de Ville's essentially was letting anyone in the early 2000s with the birthday on a napkin. The second one was the greenskeeper. George and his wife were the owners at the time. My buddy Shannon was a waiter at the greenskeeper, helped pay his way through school by working shifts at the greenskeeper he did. And we would go see our buddy Shannon, probably drinking Natty Light at the time. We'd play foosball at the greenskeeper 3 or 4 nights a week. I remember meeting Chaz Webster at the greenskeeper for the first time. I think I was 18, which means Chaz must have been like 14 or 15 in the greenskeeper at the time. I remember meeting Jay Jenkins for the first time at the greenskeeper. It was a great spot. The second spot I ever had a cold beer at inside underage in Charlottesville was the greenskeeper. From the greenskeeper, what was it? It was Jabberwocky. Am I right there? It went greenskeeper to Jabberwocky. Isn't that right? And then from Jabberwocky, it went to 3. 3 was owned by Andy McClure. In fact, my firm, our advertising agency, VMV Brands, built the website and managed some of the social media for 3 and Andy McClure. Andy also owns Citizen Burger Bar, the Virginian, the Biltmore, part owner and Bell, a serial restaurateur, Andy McClure. Second most brands in his portfolio in the city of Charlottesville, second only to Wilson Ritchie, who's the most prolific restaurateur in Central Virginia with the most restaurant brands in his portfolio. McClure is second. Both those guys, Wilson and Andy, good friends of the show. So it went greenskeeper in 2000, Jabberwocky, 3, then Andy sold 3. Was it Joe Fields you sold it to, Andy? It's been so long. I think it was Joe Fields. Yeah, Joe Fields bought 3 from Andy McClure. Joe Fields then converted 3 to Poe's Tavern. Poe's Tavern didn't last long from a brand standpoint because of trademark infringement. There were other Poe's Taverns out there, and the other Poe's Taverns that existed essentially issued a cease and desist to Joe Fields and said, change the name or we're going to sue you. Joe then rebranded Poe's Tavern and called it Eddie's Tavern, Edgar Allan Poe, Poe's Tavern, Edgar, Eddie for short. He then rebranded it Eddie's Tavern. After Eddie's Tavern had stayed vacant for an extended period of time, then Sheetz came in and put its cafe, one of 6, on the corner, hoping to catch late night business with its made-to-order subs, MTO. Sheetz is the MTO, right? Sheetz is the made-to-order subs, right? Yeah, that's Sheetz. So it was hoping to catch late night business on the corner, erode market share from Little John's, and become the late night spot for students. The problem, Sheetz opened at the absolute worst time humanly possible, right before COVID. So I'm going to ask you this question. Is that location on the corner cursed? I mean, you're talking 5 different iterations in 20 years in one spot. And you're talking 5 different restaurant iterations in 20 years in one spot when established brands like the Biltmore, the Virginian, Coops, Boylan Heights / Orbits have maintained tenure and success over the same extended period of time. Is that spot cursed? The cursed restaurant spots in Charlottesville appear to be that location on the UVA corner. The other one here on Market Street, although Courtney and her partner, the owners of Tonic, they also own Tillman's, they seem to be debunking that curse at Tonic. But that location, which is fabulously renovated, a fantastic restaurant, a pleasant dining experience at Tonic across from the Market Street garage and the police station, that location has been a hell of a lot of iterations. I remember Carlton's being there, Cafe Bocce being there, Tin Whistle being there, just off the top of my head. The question I pose, what's the more cursed spot for a restaurant in the city of Charlottesville? That location on the corner, Greenskeeper, 3, Jabberwocky, Eddie's Tavern, Sheetz, or the one across from the police station on Market, now Tonic, which is awesome. You got to try Tonic. They've got a phenomenal patio, an awesome outdoor bar, phenomenal staff, and great food. Prior to Tonic, there was a hell of a lot of turnover at that location. Carlton's, Cafe Bocce. Cafe Bocce was owned by the former mayor of Scottsville, Christopher Long. Carlton's had a cup of coffee. was open for a New York Minute on Market Street, Tin Whistle, Jacqueline Dunkel, and now Tonic. Which one's the more cursed spot? A lot of turnover in both. The second question I'm going to ask you is, what was more out of place? Sheets on the UVA corner or Urban Outfitters on the Charlottesville downtown mall, or Five Guys on the downtown mall? Three big-time brands, three huge global brands. Sheets on the UVA corner, Urban Outfitters on the downtown mall, or Five Guys on the downtown mall. Three spots, neither of them had tenure or long-term success. Urban Outfitters was clearly the one there the longest. They're in retail, not food and beverage, so maybe a difficult comparison. Regardless, my point is, those big box brands seem not to last long in certain areas. UVA Corner, Downtown Mall, Midtown. Those three spots in a 10.2 square mile city, the corner, West Main, which we call Midtown, and the downtown mall, those three spots are probably the three less receptive or least approachable spots for big box brands to open their doors. I mean, Five Guys Burgers and Fries is an established business with units all over the globe. Five Guys Burgers and Fries could not make it work downtown. Citizen Burger Bar is crushing it. In fact, I would say Citizen Burger Bar is doing the most revenue on the downtown mall of any restaurant on the mall. Citizen Burger Bar. Jack Brown's is a burger joint. It's crushing it. What's the difference between the Five Guys, Citizen Burger Bar, and Jack Brown's model? Well, Citizen Burger Bar and Jack Brown's has better food. Citizen Burger Bar and Jack Brown's are local. Jack Brown's is getting bigger, of course. Citizen has a location in Richmond. Andy just bought the building where his Citizen is located in Richmond and Carytown. He bought the building. Props to you, Andy, for doing that. But if Five Guys cannot make it downtown, that is proof of performance pop that the downtown dining district, the midtown dining district, and the UVA corner dining district are just not receptive to big brands coming to those three areas. We're going to go to Chef Diana Sabatri. I'm sorry if I'm messing your last name up, Diana. She says, I was on the phone with a chef last night who said beef tenderloin whole was about $17 to $18 a pound if you incur labor. Because of the labor shortages within the meat processing centers where they pre-butcher tenderloin, it's now $40 a pound. $40 a pound before it even gets to the restaurant. Good point. Good post right there from Diana. Marquis says, can you prove that's why Five Guys closed at the downtown mall? Well, I would say, Marquis, why else would Five Guys close on the downtown mall other than the fact that it did not have enough customers come in its door? I mean, the Five Guys owners probably expected for the business to have success, and they closed because they didn't have enough people come in. That's what I would say. Really, 99.9% of businesses close because of that. Interesting stuff. All right, a couple more items out of the notebook. I'm hearing Atlas Coffee in the Fry Springs area is either rebranding or has been sold. We'll get more information to you. Why I find that intriguing is because Dirty Nelly's, which is 10, 15 feet from Atlas Coffee? No, more than that. 30 feet, 40 feet, Atlas Coffee from Dirty Nelly's, right? I'd say it's probably 30 or 40 feet. Dirty Nelly's just sold to Jordan Brunk, who I think I've known Jordan, we've known each other, third or fourth grade? Williamsburg Soccer Club. He's a great dude. He's a hell of a soccer player, hell of a goalie, hell of a sweeper. Just a great guy, Jordan Brunk. He owns Buddhist Crozet Pizza on Elliewood. Just bought Dirty Nellies from Gary and the late, great Toby. Jordan's a music guy. He's a musician himself. He's a food guy. He's a Charlottesville guy. He went to UVA. Jordan did. Same time I was there. Knows how to run a restaurant. I would expect Jordan to take everything that's great of Dirty Nellies and maintain it, and then figure out ways to optimize the brand even more. It's closed right now as he rolls up his sleeves, he and his team, and gets it ready to reopen, a grand reopening. But folks, you got this Fry Springs corridor that I've highlighted on this show so many times that is literally prime to boom. You got a Fontaine Streetscape project that you're going to have to get over first, because there's going to be some inconveniences that come from traffic and construction with this Fontaine Streetscape project. When that is done, that area, that corridor, you call it JPA, you call it Fry Springs, dudes, it's going to blow the F up. It is going to blow up. You got a guy in Jordan Brunk. Jordan, what are you, about 38, 39? Right? Who's going to revitalize Nelly's even more. You got Atlas that is either rebranding or being sold. My bet is on sold. And you got students this fall who lost essentially a year of college because of COVID. And when they return in the fall, they're going to be going gangbusters like it's post-prohibition. Tremendous potential in the Fry Springs corridor. Tremendous potential. 2 items left that I want to get to you. In fact, it may have happened already. I'm being told that the mayor of Charlottesville is getting primed as we speak to do a Facebook Live and make an announcement on whether she's running again. I'm getting multiple messages on this, including one from a contact inside City Hall. So that item I need to give to you in a matter of moments, minutes, if not a little bit more. We'll know whether the mayor runs for re-election, whether she's willing to do it. On Monday, we continue the economics of menu pricing with Chef Mike Matarazzo, and he's going to walk us through the economics of payroll, food costs, menu pricing, what $15 to $20 an hour for staffers at the back of the house could do to us as customers. I'm going to ask you this question. With inflation, pinched supply chains, increased cost of goods, and labor going sky high from an hourly rate standpoint, we're going to be going into our favorite restaurants and see $14, $15, $16, $17 salads. $14, $15, $16, $17, $18, $19, $20, chicken sandwiches. And it's going to be up to us to go in with the understanding that if we want these locally owned brands to continue, we got to be okay with it and realize it's just not food we're eating, but it's the experience of going out and sitting down that we're paying for. If it's just going to be about dollars and cents and putting food in your mouth and looking at the bottom line, you're going to be unhappy where prices are going. If you're able to have the perspective of, I'm paying for the experience of sitting down, having table service, having a craft cocktail made by an expert mixologist, having a meal prepared by some of the best, something that I don't have to do in my own kitchen, then you pay for what you get. You get what you pay for. So it's a really intriguing storyline, folks. It is a really intriguing storyline. We are at a number of crossroads due to inflation, due to pinched supply chains, due to labor shortages, due to the leverage that employees have over employers, especially in the F&B space. We're at a place where so many of our favorite brands are going to have to either reinvent or innovate. And the reinvent or innovate could be no more table service, window service. Pick up your food at a window, might not have the front of the house staff. I mean, look at what Pro Renata's doing. I thought it was pretty genius what Pro Renata was doing. They have some weekends customers walking off with 100 branded pint glasses so the customers can keep the pint glasses for their beer collection at home. 100 branded pint glasses leaving the brewery every single weekend, not every weekend, but on some weekends. That's an expensive cost. So here's what Pro Renata did. I thought it was genius. They are now selling a pint glass that's kind of like a tin cup. It has the Pro Renata logo on it. I'm a huge fan of the hop drone. Huge fan of the hop drone. They're saying, buy this pint glass from us. You get to keep the glass. Bring it in the next time you come to Pro Renata, and we'll give you a quarter off every draft beer in perpetuity where you bring that cup to us. Dudes, I think that's genius. Imagine if you're the restaurant, the brewery, the winery, and you're selling the glassware to your customers, and then asking the customers to bring the branded glassware back to your establishments for future visits. Look at what you've done from an innovation standpoint. You are saving on overhead when it comes to pint glasses. You're not buying as many. You are taking a branded mechanism and you're putting it at the shelves of people's homes where they're going to use it and get reminded by your restaurant or your brand at home. You are then encouraging them to come back to your establishment because they're incentivized by a discount if they bring the glass back in. And lastly, you're creating less work for your dish pit and your back of the house personnel because the customers are taking the cups and the pint glasses home with them. Think about what Jack Brown's has done. Jack Brown's, on their menu, you don't see lettuce and tomato. You don't see vegetables that can spoil if not utilized. Jack Brown's, you see freaking paper plates that can be thrown away. As a result, the Jack Brown's on the corner, I've legitimately seen in a damn near packed house, one bartender and one back of the house personnel, a cook, run the entire restaurant. Now, I'm saying if it's standing room only, there's no way in hell two people are going to be doing it. But at a happy hour on a Thursday or a Wednesday, when you have 30 people in there or so, at Jack Brown's in the mall, you can have one person in the back of the house and one bartender. On a packed slam night before COVID, you had two bartenders and two in the back of the house. But the Jack Brown's model is, we don't want the vegetables that can spoil, that can go to waste. And we want to do as little dishwashing as possible. That's why we're going to do it on paper plates so we can throw it away. Maybe it's this kind of thinking that we're going to see moving forward. Maybe it's no less front of the house staff. Pick up at the window when your name is called. Bodo's Bagel style. What if that pick up at the window, Bodo's Bagel style, was done at a sit-down restaurant? How would we respond to that? Curious. I'd be fine with it. I would rather go to a restaurant that had a white paper towel as my napkin than a white linen napkin. I like the paper towel instead of the white linen. That's just me. I'm a approachable, eat with my hands kind of guy. The next 6 months, and I'm getting off here in 3 minutes because I got a conference call in actually 2.5 minutes here. The next 6 months, year, 2 years and change, you're going to see nuanced restaurateurs, nuanced executive chefs, and nuanced general managers tweak business models like we've never seen before to survive. And it's up to us, the paying public, the populace, to be patient with these folks as they figure out their methodology of survival. That's the show. We'll continue the discussion on Monday. I'm grateful for you guys watching. Let your friends know about the I Love CVille show. And this weekend, when it's 90 degrees and it's UVA graduation and Charlottesville, Virginia is crushing it, and we're outside enjoying the sunshine and getting good food and drink in our belly, let's remember and not forget where we were this time last year. We were leaving the grocery bags in the garage. We were taking our clothes off after we left the house and came back to the house, and we immediately left them in the garage. We were taking our shoes off before we entered our home, all because of COVID. We thought COVID was on the grocery bags. We thought COVID was on the bottom of our shoes. We thought COVID was on our clothes. We were stripping down in the garage after running errands. A year later, we're vaccinated, many of us maskless, and we're back to patronizing and supporting the brands and businesses we love. You know why I bring this to you? Perspective, and a reason to be grateful. Anytime you want to complain, last year it was worse. All right, that's the show. You guys have a good weekend. Thank you for joining us on the I Love CVille show. Take care.